Ziigaat Doscinco. This probably has the best bass I've heard under $400. If you're looking for a set with great low-end texture, then these are pretty much the endgame for the vast majority of you guys out there, and my new benchmark when it comes to bassy sets. The overall sound is warm leaning, relaxing, smooth, but also well balanced without having the mid-bass bleed and just blow up the rest of the sound signature. You can hear a lot of reverb from the sub-bass, very detailed in the decay, almost like you can feel the air from the drivers. The slam and weight is very satisfying, with the low end being more forward and authoritative. But even given all that low end, the most impressive thing is that the notes are well separated and doesn't blend together and become like overly boomy. You can clearly hear the individual bass notes on Hulu at 135 compared to some other sets that just mushes together into like one single note without any, separation or reverb or decay or just like overall lower resolution and detail in the bass. I highly recommend these for hip hop and rock, as those are low end focused genres and they sound super immersive with the Doscinco's bass. And because the Doscinco is smooth, you can also crank them up more, which helps a lot with scaling and just the overall immersion of the music. But this doesn't mean they don't sound great on other genres like pop and EDM, as energetic tracks relies on the sub bass, which the Doscinco has a lot of, but also the warmer tonality that helps tame the fatiguing electrical and more sharper elements. Now, all that extra low end does color the sound a bit, making the overall tone a little thicker, heavier, and less neutral. However, the impressive thing is the Doscinco's low end knows when to bring forth the bass, the impact, the rumble, and just really knows when to let the song just breathe. For example, I tested a lot of ballads, slow rock, and indie tracks, and they sound surprisingly not that warm, very musical, and not overly bassy. Of course, the sound is still going to be warmer than neutral, but because there's less sub bass in those songs, along with the well-controlled low end, the Doscinco still comes off as natural, less clean, obviously, a little bit more colored, but never congested or overly warm. Vocals are obviously going to be a little bit heavier, huskier, a little bit less open and less detailed compared to like cleaner sets like the Hype 2, the EA 1000s, but they still sound natural and enjoyable, more relaxed and intimate than, open. In terms of the treble, the Doscinco isn't super airy, but it's pretty smooth dynamically, no roll off or huge peaks and dips. There's enough detail and decay in the air region without becoming overly bright or too airy that it takes away the focus from the low end and makes everything sound too big and kind of pushing the bass away from the head stage and making it less forward and less impactful. The soundstage, I would say, is average to intimate depending on how much bass there is in a song. For example, on ballads and slower songs, it sounds normal because there's not that much sub bass or like drums going on, whereas for hip hop tracks, the low end is more forward, which makes the experience, more immersive and elevates the overall energy to be more aggressive, more in your face, more like head bopping, and just makes the track go a lot harder, in my opinion, at the sacrifice of like a little bit smaller staging. Instruments aren't buried or lost in busier tracks, just not as clear and open as like the Hype 2, for example. Again, not top tier when it comes to separation, but it does its job from stopping things from getting overly bloated. Basically, the Doscinco's mid-range and treble acts as the supporting roles to its low end, providing enough resolution without overtaking the main star of the show and shifting the focus onto the vocals or the treble, but allowing the bass to really just come forward and be super impactful. Compared to the Hype 2, the Doscinco outclasses it in terms of the low end rumble, the impact, the slam, the reverb detail. It's just a much better set when it comes to the bass. It not only has more of it, but the control and impact is also there as well, and arguably even better. The Hype 2, on the other hand, is cleaner and more resolving. It feels more open and better separated because of like the tamer mid bass and just the tamer low end and sub bass in general. It's more balanced and it fits better for those who are looking for a cleaner sound, or just if you want more air in the treble. Both have smooth dynamics overall, but depending on which type of sound you're after, either one can be a nice complementary side grade to one or the other. As for the Hype 4, both have very good low end, similar sub bass rumble, with the difference being in the mid bass, where the Doscinco slams harder because there's more of it, it's heavier with more impact, and the bass also feels more forward versus the Hype 4 that's not as close due to the extra air and tamer mid bass, creating that extra sense of space. Resolution and separation is going to be better on the Hype 4, and in my opinion, they're still one of the best all-rounder sets you can get under $500. Works very well with pretty much like every other genre, whereas I would personally pick the Doscinco for hip-hop, R&B, rock, since the low end just feels more immersive. Likewise, it's a similar story versus the EA 1000 and the LM. Both these Ziigaats are more resolving with better treble detail, more air, it's sparklier, it's cleaner in the separation, with the vocals going to the EA 1000s, but the Doscinco does edge them out in the low end. It has better texture, reverb, you hear more of the echo from the air. Basically, if you're looking looking for a bassy warm set under $400, the Doscincos would be the set. They're not super bass set sets like the Fat Freak Maestro or the Scarlet series, but bass set enough for most people who just want a good amount of slam without, you know, the low end completely overtaking and drowning the sound, which the Maestro Minis sometimes do happen on certain songs because of just the extra sub bass, and the Scarlet even has more bass than the Maestro Minis. Now, if you're coming from something like the QKZ HBB, Curious Cadenza, the Quartet, and want a similar sound as those, but just with better low-end quality, then the Doscincos would be like the direct upgrade to those bassy / warm sets. And if you want a more balanced neutral sound, then something like the Origin or even the Hype 2 would be better, more resolving, cleaner, you know, less musical. Obviously the bass isn't going to be as good, but the separation and treble detail is a noticeable step up. Personally, the Doscinco is my new benchmark for hip-hop, R&B, and just like older rock bands like Pink Floyd. I mean, even some pop songs like Runaway With Me by, you know, Carly Rae Jepsen sounds fantastic on these. The drums go very hard on the chorus, and normally you need to turn down the volume on that song because the chorus is like purposefully mixed louder than the verse, so when you jump to the chorus it gets like super loud. But with the Doscincos, I didn't need to touch the volume knob because the scaling and the dynamics are very solid, as well just the extra mid bass kind of balances out that extra jarriness. Overall, just a great IEM if you like bass. We were missing something like this under $400, and the Doscinco fills that bassy warm niche very well. So if that's what you're looking for, these would be a good choice. But yeah, I hope this review was helpful. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one.